object. So remember, this is the official definition of Gestalt theory, which has been unified whole, which is a good way of describing an overarching theme behind the Gestalt principle. This refers to the way in which humans, when looking at a group of objects, will see the whole before we see the individual parts. So I'll come back to this. As an example, can you guys all read this sentence right here, right under example?
Trying to say.
Right. So this is why a lot of times we have typos. I was telling you about those big typos that I've done before in my career, and when everybody looks at it, right, and it's like, and you pass it down, you're like, hey, would you mind reading this to make sure I don't have any typos? And then they're like, no, it's like, you're good. And then, you somebody like random, like this happened to, we had a adjunct professor named Mandy, and that happened to her portfolio, which is so embarrassing. She was in college. They had the portfolio show. She had gone over her pieces multiple times, and this creative director came by and was walking around, and the first thing the creative director saw, guess what it was? The typo that nobody else had caught. Things like that happen all of the time because your eye gets so acclimated, right, to like looking at something that sometimes you don't really see it. This is why it's so important to actually have other people look at your work. You want to do that even if have somebody that has not seen it at all, just gonna read it over. I'm telling you, I have made some big mistakes, and they're so embarrassing. And some of them cost money because they have to reprint things. So you just want to go ahead and and minimize it by showing other people. Um, so what are you gonna do? So you're gonna hand draw 30 to 40 designs using Sharpie with the provided grid, and I will show you that in a second. They should be labeled for a specific category of Gestalt principle. Do not erase, destroy, cross out any design. You gotta keep all your designs for discussions to better understand why some design works better than others, and I will help you pick out your best 24 for your portfolio. So again, this is a conceptual idea. So even though it's not a specific thing, you can still have it in your portfolio. Because what happens when you do work like this, sometimes it triggers future ideas. And I think I mentioned this before, especially for logos. Because you're going to have to develop a personal logo that you will put on your resume, on your business card. So you will have to show something about you on that resume. So these icons can actually help you do that. Here's an example. So I'm putting one example in here. So we are going to do containment, continuity, closure, repetition, similarity, proximity. So kind of like this assignment that you were doing, I really do think if you didn't look at the definition in the dictionary, I would advise you that you do so. Not because you don't know what the meaning of the word is because it can spark you to think additional ideas of what that also means and what you're going to do. So, see how this is laid out, like in a grid? So, you're going to put the name on the top, kind of like this, and then you're literally going to draw examples below it using circles. You can use circles or you can use squares. Okay? And you are literally going to tell me what you think what containment is. I don't want to see any specific drawing, and this is why I included this example. Do you see that the only writing in here is the header, right? This could be people, this could be a bunch of cars, this could be a bunch of trees. So I don't really tell, but if I look at something, if you as you're looking at this is reminding you of we all have different ideas of what it reminds us of. That's the whole idea. So you're communicating again the meaning of the word with your drawings. So what I did here in the provided grid, I put in the sheet. You may not be able to see it if it's in the light. Yeah, you can. Once you download it, you'll be able to see it's a sheet that has a bunch of boxes. You have six squares this way, 6 squares horizontally, and 4 vertically. So you can actually, so what I would do, I would probably use parchment paper. Again, because I like how my hand moves on parchment paper or marker paper. When you use a regular piece of paper, I feel like your creativity gets, your hand doesn't flow as well, and I feel it kind of stops you. So what you can do, you can put the tracing paper, the parchment paper on top of this grid because it's already set up, and just use it to guide your thumbnails. That's what I would do. So it actually is gonna look like this. And just so you know, by the way, it's like when you create logos, it's a really good idea to actually like create little squares or rectangles because it helps you focus on that icon that you are creating. Also, a lot of people go into, I'm going to include this link, I haven't added it on here. Gestalt principles in UI design. So I love this chart, look at this. Proximity, common fate, continuity, similarity, closure, common region, and symmetry. So again, you're communicating the meaning of the word visually. Now, it's not easy. If you guys find yourself being frustrated, you can't come to class and do the assignment 5 minutes before class. It's not going to work. You're not going to come up with a great idea. Remember, this is part of the creative process. This is that 85% that you really have to give it your all. Sometimes, excuse me, sometimes what helps is, sometimes I do like quick thumbnails before I actually do the real one. And I doodle just to get, it's like, what is repetition to me, as an example? And I just do a bunch of them before I actually do the real thumbnail. Some people do work like that, and if you feel the need to work like that, that's completely okay. Okay, just kind of like think this through. Whatever helps you to get yourself in that space. Okay, and this also has some really good examples. Have you ever looked at the sky noticing and you see a shape of a cloud and thinking it reminds you of an object? All the time, right? All the time, yes. I mean, so that's what you're doing. You're kind of connecting the dots. So these are some good examples in here in this article. And then it also gives you some good examples about how does the proximity principle apply to UI design. So this is very useful. And you can see some examples of layout because I think that also will help you. Will help you be in the place that you need to be. So here's another example. I use the example of the triangle again, right? It's like if I look at this, I see 2 triangles. But if you really focus on this, there's not even 1 triangle because there's not one actually drawn out. But this gives you the idea that there are 2, one on top of the other. So I think you'll find this useful. Any questions on this? I see you guys are already kind of thinking about what you're going to do. Just like keep it, you guys all have your Sharpie, right? I gave you your Sharpie. Okay. You guys, you have a Sharpie? Okay, I'll give it to you. So take your time. This is due next Tuesday. You're going to bring him in. And I have parchment paper, tracing paper if anybody needs some. You're going to bring him in. if you find yourself drawing any type of object or people, scratch it off and start over. I don't want to see any of that. All I want to see are either circles or squares.
Only circle and squares, no other shapes.
I can't hear you. What do you say?
Just circle and squares, no other shapes.
No, I wouldn't combine them. I would either do like circles or squares. Okay? I would not combine them, both of them. I would just pick one theme and stick with that. You can use your ruler if you want to. It's like really how are you gonna communicate these words? I know you guys found this assignment, the composition, a little challenging, right? So simple, but so challenging. Okay, and this is what I was always saying. I feel like a lot of school districts, and when I was observing classes for the ISD, they were a major culprit in this. They rush through the assignments and kill creativity. So I think what's happening now, and I've seen it for many years, I think what's happening now is like you can't rush it. Like I told you guys before, it's like learning to ride a bike, right? You're not okay. If I try 3 times, on the third one I can take the wheels off, and I'm not gonna learn a bike. You can't rush it. You guys remember when you start learning how to ride a bike? I mean, just think about that. You couldn't rush it. You could rush maybe the time that it took, but even then you don't really rush it. So let's say that if you say, by Friday I'm gonna know how to ride a bike, and today's Tuesday. So that means you're going to spend all this hour Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday because you want to ride a bike on Friday. So I can guarantee you're going to spend a long time, maybe 12 hours, right? If you have no idea how to ride a bike those 3 days. But guess what? Maybe you'll meet your deadline. The exact same thing with this. You can't, it's like I was telling my students yesterday, you guys heard me. Or maybe it was my other class. The example, I was observing a class, and the teacher said you have to draw yourself. And I looked up, and one of the students, they had all these cans, like folder cans in the center of the table, and they took the bottom of the can and traced it. And I saw one doing it. I'm like, okay, well that's pretty clever. But then the other professor I was observing with, he's like, look up. They all were doing it like that. And it was a disappointment for me to see because we are all different shapes, we're all different colors. Not all of them have a round face. But I know that the teacher did it, not her fault, but the teacher's probably trying to speed up the process because there's all these things that they have to get in that lesson, right? That is required by the district. So you interrupt the creative process. So just be patient with yourself because what I'm doing, I'm slowing you